on time. Open houses, right?
We are a couple.
We open early.
Yeah.
It's not.
One second.
Al, do you know the passwords? Oh,
The Wi-Fi.
Yes.
Nick.
It is let me in with a capital L. There should be a thing in the back with it written down as well.
All one word? Yeah. We're just waiting for one last thing with technology and then we'll get going.
Well, that's what they did.
the annoying thing.
Frozen.
No, I just had to pull up a couple. Oh, yes, I did pause it. Okay.
Okay. All right, we're ready to rock. Welcome, everybody, to the RAMP program. That's the Realtor Achievement Mastery Program. For those of you that are back, welcome back. For those of you that are new here, I'm truly excited about today. I'm happy and grateful to be here. We have a room full of panelists, with seasoned veterans, I would say, for experts in their own right. They're going to be talking about specific things today. Some of them first to the book. Before we talk about that, I do want to talk about the sponsors. Kelly couldn't make it here today, but this is sponsored by Prime Lending. They are New Haven County's #1 referred lending group. So if you haven't given her a chance, please look her up. She's doing absolutely amazing things, not just for the industry, but also for not just for her sales, but also for our industry. She's one of the top sponsors for the New Haven Association of Realtors, Middlesex Association of Realtors as well. So, and then the other sponsor is the Ask Insurance Group. We have one of the representatives here. That's Jackie over there in the corner. And I believe today we'll be having lunch. It will be here around 12. So today we have 4 panelists. They're going to talk for about 20 minutes. Then we'll open it up for questions for 10 minutes. And then the next panelist will come on. First person will be Kathy Elson. She is the CEO of the MLS. Before you, I guess we could just roll right, right? Yeah, we can just roll right into it, and then I'll introduce you all one by one. I was going to introduce you guys all at once.
Oh, you can do that.
No, it's okay. We do it like that. So this is Kathy. She's the CEO of the MLS. All these panelists have been instrumental in my career in one way or another, whether it's just being involved with me as part of Your Professional Network, and we grew together. Kathy's been there for me as answering questions as the MLS. And she's given me some great insight. She allows me to play around with the MLS. I get to give her feedback on it. She's got some exciting news coming up for very big changes to the MLS that I'm truly excited about. And today she'll be our first presenter. And let's give it up for Kathy.
Looks like somebody was trying to get in the room.
Yeah, Rachel's gonna.
She'll do that. So welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here. So pretty small session. I don't know how many people we have online, but there's more people online than I thought. So I assume they have a way to ask questions online.
Yes. Yeah.
So ask questions. I've got 20 minutes, 10 minutes of questions. I could probably talk for 4 hours, but we'll quickly go through this. And the key is communication. So this is a real world real estate. So what really happens, I'm going to tell you what we see on our side on the MLS. So a little bit of a different twist on the MLS side of things today. And the first thing I would just say is just play by the golden rule, right? Communicate on how you want to be communicated with. Most of the issues that we hear on our side is because of lack of communication, right? You don't know if someone submitted the offer, no one's getting back to you, it's been days. Just think of how you would want to be treated and treat others that same way. If you don't have something, if you don't know an answer because your client is stalling, just reach out and say, hey, I'm still trying to get you an answer. I just don't have you an answer yet, right? All that lack of communication. And then people not cooperating with each other. Just treat each other like you'd want to be treated yourself, right? So if you just think about that, what's going on, sometimes you can't control your client, but you can control the communication that you have with your client, even if that communication is, hey, I don't really have anything right now, a quick text just to say, and then try to simmer, and things work a lot better that way. So just put that in the back of your head. And then my next tip is just ask questions, right? There is so much to learn and so much going on in the industry right now. There's lots and lots of change going on. And sometimes there's different based on the situation. There's a different answer based on the situation. So make sure you explain the situation properly, give all the facts of the issue so that we can provide you with the best possible answer, right? Because it could depend, certain things depend on certain types of financing. There's a whole bunch of different issues that go on. So ask lots and lots of questions. Don't be afraid to ask. And we're here at the MLS to help, right? So pick up the phone. My general rule, if anyone seen me orientation, I usually do an orientation here as well. If you're thinking about something for more than 45 seconds to a minute, pick up the phone and ask, right? We're here to help, and we'll just give you the information rather than think about it, fester about it. We're open 8:30 to 7, Monday through Thursday, 8:30 to 6 on Friday, and 9 to 3 on Saturday and Sunday. So we're here to help. You can also chat on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, but definitely ask for help. Always ask why, right? So a lot of us have been doing this for a long time. Things get passed down from generation to generation as being factual, right? As what has to be done and like the only way that things can be done. But it might just be, that's how it was 35 years ago, right? Things change. So if it doesn't make sense, have the nerve to ask why. Why does it have to be that way? Can it be this way? If you're asking why this, then have another solution. Can it be, why can't we do it this way? I was in a meeting yesterday, and just having general conversation, and a great idea came up. I'm like, how do we not think of that for a really long time? This solution would help brokers out tremendously. I'm like, just a rather conversation, and someone asked a question, and we got an awesome solution to a problem wouldn't even know we could fix, right? So there could always be a better way. There's always, different ways of doing things when you're in the MLS system. Why we have certain fields. I don't know why we have certain fields, right? That they've just been there for a long time. You guys are out in the field. You see that new construction's got, there's different components people are searching for. They change the names of rooms all the time, right? So, what was a den one time is like a sitting room, a man cave, whatever. They're all some sort of extra room, but whatever the, more modern vernacular is, keep us informed. We're in the, we're not in the trenches. You guys are hearing and seeing things, so we're sort of insulated. So inform us of things as much as you guys are informing each other. Okay, real estate folklore. Things get passed down from generation to generation, right? Or you're sitting there and not as many people are in the office anymore, but you got that, office cooler talk going on, people saying, this is how things were, this is how it was, this is how it should be done. And it's sort of like that game of telephone. It gets passed from here to here to here to here. And when it starts out here, it may or may not have been accurate. When it comes down to here, yeah, sometimes it's got no resemblance of anything based in reality. So if you think something's not right, if you think maybe that's too good to be true, anything like that, just talk to your manager, talk to the broker, reach out to us, reach out to the association, and find out what reality is, right? So a lot of shortcuts get taken over time. We see just with listing agreements, right? So everybody knows everybody has to have a listing agreement. They have to have a start date, an end date, this wonderful thing called a listing price. They should be signed by all the parties. People upload their listing agreements to us. It's amazing how many don't have all those components, right? The stuff that goes on, and that's something pretty basic. And then there's different examples on a whole bunch of other things. So make sure you're finding out truly what the right thing to do is, and not just the tradition that somebody had doing things, right? So, advertising listings, make sure they, everybody wants to know what's going on, especially with the limited inventory these days, because there's, I don't know, 4,000 listings across the state of Connecticut right now, which is not a lot. We've been up around the 12,000 number before to put into perspective as to what's going on. So, it's easier to not put a listing on sometimes, but you got to cooperate. The MLS is cooperation. If everybody cooperates, the system works a lot better. And then people, when your client calls up and says, hey, I saw this property somewhere else, and they don't have it on the MLS, it loses trust with the members, right? So we don't want to have the public to lose trust in the realtor organization. We don't want anyone to have like a bad taste that people aren't cooperating. So the whole theme here is do what you do, how you want to be treated, right? So put all your stuff on the system. If you update your listings, right? So if a listing's under contract, say it's under contract. Does anybody ever call the property their client fell in love with? And they're like, oh yeah, that went under contract 3 days ago, which leads to a lot of disappointment. We've had people literally pull up to go view a property and the moving truck has been there, right? So keep your listings accurate and up to date. Keep everybody informed as to what's going on, and everybody will be a lot happier working together. So stay informed, right? So how do you stay informed? So right now in the current MLS system, you got your news and alerts. New Haven, Middlesex there's always a news and alert there. If you read those and get a general idea of what's going on, you'll know what's going on here in New Haven, Middlesex, and then you'll know what's going on at SmartMLS. We try really hard to only put important information there so that you know what's going on. The other option is Inman. You guys all get a subscription to Inman through CTR, right? If you read the headlines there, you can get a digest of what's going on just to see what's going on in the real estate industry. The real estate industry has got billions and billions of dollars being poured into it. The industry is changing as we speak, right? We want to be a part of that change and make sure the real estate agent is in the center of that transaction. That is our goal at SmartMLS. But we need you to be informed so that you know why we're doing certain things, right? Because things are going to evolve, things are going to change. Yep.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Do you guys have statistics on the news and alerts of like what the open rate and could?
So today we don't. Underneath that picture there under matrix, we don't. Under the new system, we will.
What about all the realtors in here? How many times do you guys open the alerts or because you get two options, read already or read later? And so
Read later.
how many of us actually read the alerts or anything like that?
But be truthful, right? So is it maybe once every couple?
So what are the ones that stimulate? I feel like this may be good feedback for you. What are the ones as real estate agents that stimulate you the most? That like, why don't you read all of them? Is there too many, or are some of them just seem irrelevant?
You're popping it up at the time we're going to look for something. We already have a concentration and you're putting it at the wrong time.
So, okay.
If it was at a different timing, such as just a little red note saying they're here, and every time you go in, you could go, okay, look, we haven't seen these over the last month.
You can highlight it in red where it flashes to say, hey, there's something important there, rather than pop up
Yeah, the pop-up.
in our way when we want to search right then and there for the client.
So there's good news with that, and that's definitely a good question. So we are going to be
I'm not trying to change your system. I'm just trying to get feedback.
no, and it's great because actually I was looking at that literally 2 days ago that we can see the feedback on who opens and who not. Right now I'm blind in the new system. So a new MLS system is coming. Yay. But it's going. I hate change that. It does not. No. So yay. These are staying the same and you guys are going. So today is this January 2023 marks the beginning of a new period in SmartMLS, right? So we need a technology stack that we can grow and evolve with that can tell us little tidbits like how many people read the news, right? So we would have information. We don't have that stuff in our current system today. So although I hate change, I heard over here, most people do, but change for a good reason
It works.
It's going, and it's going to work, yeah, sure.
I think the best information I get from that is what do my CEs do?
Yeah.
Who's getting it through the association here? And I agree that, you know, you're logging on and you've got a mission here, I got a search, I gotta pull up this property. But I always read real quick right through them and click, you know, read later, and then at least next time I come up, that is popping up in front of me, because that is by far the best information that I get from that.
So,
News.
right,
What am I CEs do?
But
And
it
you click
disappears
read
after.
later, it'll pop up. It'll pop up the next time you log on.
so the good news with all of that, that section is a million times better in the new MLS system, and does that technology, the way they handle everything, it does everything Matrix does, just a heck of a lot better. So we've got options to target individuals. Yep.
To have that list of who's giving the CDs and when only generates more money for the board. So that our members are coming here for the CDs rather than going outside to other boards or to other companies that are offering.
Yeah, and we'll give that information back to Dawn,
Yeah.
and I'm sure they're
Yes,
watching it.
that number. It's great.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah, the new system is going to be able to keep track of many things, right? It's going to keep you informed. It's going to be the focal point of everything. But it's just the start of our journey to make the MLS system, everything that you need it to be, so that you get a full 360 view of what's going on. So it's the start of our new beginning, and then the number of products you're going to get for the same amount of money you're paying today. I think the other day, I think we listed, I think it's 7 new things will be coming out this year. Not to be overwhelmed, they're going to be combined, and it's going to be, all work cohesively, and they're going to work together, and it's going to make your life easier, right? So we don't want to give you tools to use. We want to give you solutions and systems to use. So this year is going to be fantastic, right? It's going to be a year of change. Communication is going to be key. Working together. Is it all going to work 100% right out of the box? We're going to try really hard, but I'm not naive enough to think that it is. So your feedback is key. Does anybody want special access to the new system?
Sure. Yes.
So awesome. I will, I'll get a list from Dawn or whomever, and I'll activate. It's called Connect MLS. It'll be on your dashboard. As soon as I get the list, it'll be the second icon. You got your matrix icon, then you got your Connect MLS icon. You can go in there, play around with the system. All your saved searches for matrix, all your contacts are already in there. They sync automatically. There isn't any reason why you can't start using the system today if you wanted to, right? I encourage you to start using it, create yourself a saved search, see how it goes. The client portal is a lot better than what you had today. Get used to it. Do your everyday type stuff there and see if you come into a roadblock, right? Sure.
Are there already tutorials on how to navigate the using system?
Yep, so we have tutorials on how to use it. There's videos. We're actually gonna have a class specifically for beta testers that they want, but it's, I call it similar but different, right? That search is a search and it does different things, but yeah, we've got all of that already.
When is it gonna happen? Like,
When's it gonna happen for everyone?
yeah, everyone have to go, we're forced to use it
Worst, yeah, so probably early summer.
in the summer.
Yep.
Yeah, so we're running short on your time, and I didn't want to make this about the new MLS system, but I am truly excited about it because it's a tool that's designed to work for realtors. And I'm not gonna just like breach anything that I know about it, but it's gonna be very powerful for those of us that utilize it. One suggestion that I would suggest is on your current MLS, if you're not going to beta test the new one, go and learn on the video tutorials for that. And because it's my belief that the current MLS that we have, realtors probably use like 5 or 6% of what it has to offer, including all the widgets and everything like that. So, but the new one is going to give a lot of very useful information back to you, and it can make you a stronger realtor. So we don't run out of time. I wanted to know if we had any questions for Kathy. I know one of the biggest piece of information that I pulled out of it that I always watch as well was the inventory comment that you made. I watched it go from 12 and then get to, I think the number is like, what is it, cap out at 5 or 6? What one is it?
Oh, for the amount you can export is 5.
Yeah, it's because
Right now.
for almost years and years, it's like 5,000 plus when you'd open it, and now we can see the number, and anytime you can see the number, it's like.
That's not a good thing. Inventory
So-
being this low is not a good thing.
And then if you guys have questions about the MLS, they have, like, how many staff members do you have there just answering questions? When I went in there last month or so, there was a fair amount of people just sitting in cubicles.
So, yeah, we've got 7 support people, regular MLS support people.
Yeah, so they're there to support you. I think that's probably highly underutilized. You probably field more complaints than actual like inquiries on how to use something. So it's definitely useful. I know I've utilized it quite a bit. So I would highly suggest that.
Yep, we're here for you. Just if you got a question, reach out. If you need to do something, the system can do pretty much anything you can dream up. It just might not be A to B to C. We might have to go A to F to G to get there, but we can get you the information. If you can dream it, we can likely get it. So.
Yeah, when you're ready to talk about it, we'd love to have you come in and talk about the whole.
Certainly.
But, so do we have any questions for Kathy?
Are there any new compliance regulations coming soon?
No, there's no new changes coming down the pike. We made a whole bunch of changes a few years ago. But everybody seems to be, playing more fairly than they were before. So things are going on in the system. I don't know if you guys have any feedback of behaviors that, you put rules in place to fix behavior. So is there anything that's in need of fixing that? So knock on wood, people are uploading their listing agreements. That is our #1 compliance fine, is not uploading your listing agreement. It's supposed to be done within 24 hours. We give people 7 days before they do it, and people still get fined. Like, that's just one that can be avoided. And it's one of the better things we ever did, that was uploading the listing agreement. It's definitely helped for accountability.
For the last answer, I heard somebody ask why, and
Why?
I know the answer why, but if you have to share why did we start uploading the listing agreement?
So we were finding that A, people didn't have one. B, if there's changes to something or someone asked a question, it would be, okay, Stephanie would call the MLS. She'd have a question about a listing. We would then have to call Steve because he was the listing agent to say, hey, can you send us a copy of your agreement? So we've got time there. Then the time comes by, we look at it, we reach out to Stephanie, and it was a complete and utter time suck, and information was getting lost in translation. So now Stephanie calls, she's got a question about Steve's thing, and we go in, we look, we can answer the question right away, right? So there's much timeliness, it gave much more accountability to things. The stuff that we have seen, people had no idea what a variable rate commission was. So it's required by law to disclose if there's a variable rate commission, that would be on the listing agreement. So we educated a whole bunch of people on that they had variable rate commission, weren't disclosing it, and a bunch of other things, extending expiration dates, pricing, when people mess things up. And I don't know, just elevated the playing field for everyone, by having the accountability to put it in there. So, although it's slightly annoying, everybody's got a scan feature in their pocket to scan a contract, and just put it up there. So, it's been super, super helpful on our side.
Yeah, and it sounds like it has to do a lot with the reason why we're having this specific ramp training right here is to elevate professionalism across the industry. As we know, the licensed real estate agents across the states has almost doubled in the last 4 years. Not quite double, but we're getting very close. I think when I started, we were around 12,000, and now we're up towards 22,000, or I don't know the exact numbers. But as you know, is when new people are entering into an industry, especially at such a fast influx like that, professional standards get lower, right? So that's why we're hosting this panel here today.
The law class that you took on Friday, she said it was 30,000.
30,000. Wow. So I don't know if that's true, but
I think those might be realtors and then licensees that are not realtors, probably.
yeah, so I'm talking about realtors, and then there are licensed real estate agents, because you can be a licensed real estate agent and not a realtor, right? But yeah, so thank you so much, Kathy.
No, thank you.
So before we go to the next person, which is Steve Miller, he's an outstanding veteran in real estate. He's been around for a long time. If you don't know Steve, I don't even know if you sell real estate in New Haven County. But I did want to talk about next month's ramp training. That's lending solutions for every market. That's with Kelly McGinnis. That's on February 15th. If you're interested in that, or if you're going for the certification, you can sign up right here in real time in the back. Or if you're on Zoom, you can just probably send Rachel an email or just drop your information into the chat and she can get you signed up. Emails will be going out after that. And then the following month in March, on the 15th of March, I think I'm going to do another panel as well. And that one's strictly around social media. I know years ago when I first got into real estate, social media was not that prominent. I was one of the very few agents utilizing it. And now it seems majority of agents are utilizing it, but are we utilizing it to the maximum efficiency? So I know you guys are tired of just hearing from me, so I'm going to bring in a panel of other realtors or industry professionals, maybe mortgage or insurance people that are utilizing it to get themselves and their brand in front of the public more, or in front of other professionals to get their name known, because this is a co-broke relationship. And then lastly, in April, to close out the ramp program, that's our rookie rockstar panel. We left that for last because that is something that everybody's always extremely interested in. This is people that have been in the industry for 2 years or less that are doing significant amounts of business. We always wonder, how do we get started? How do we get started quickly? You'll hear most real estate agents say, I got into this industry, I didn't sell a house for 8 months, 9 months, or a year plus. But there are other people defying the odds, and we want to hear what their strategies are. They're going to be coming from big brokerages, small brokerages, to prove that everyone has a unique approach. So that one is going to be on April 12th. So once again, if you have some time today, I'd highly suggest just signing up in the back, or just dropping, if you're on Zoom, drop your information into the chat or email Rachel. So next up is Steve Miller. Like I was saying, if you haven't ran into Steve in the real estate industry, then I don't know if you're selling real estate in New Haven County. He's also been involved with the Association of Realtors on several different committees. He's been our RPAC chair. He currently, are you still RPAC chair for us as well? Yeah. And so what Steve is going to talk about is real estate professionalism. And he's going to talk about what he's seen throughout his, how long have you been in real estate, Steve?
43 years.
43 years. So longer than I've been alive. You know, yeah. So more than half a decade longer than I've been alive. So the reason why I had Steve come here and speak here today is because if you've been in this industry for 43 years, you've seen multiple market downturns and multiple market spikes. You've seen an influx of realtors come in. You've seen an influx of realtors leave. So you've experienced pretty much everything that the real estate brand has to offer, and you've seen it all. So Steve's going to come up. Please welcome him. He's going to talk a little bit about his experience.
Thank you for having me.
Is this the check? Is this the cash that you owe me for the introductory?
Thank you, Kathy, for your information. Kathy and her staff on top of everything all the time. So thank you. I'm here to talk mostly about ethics and standards of practice in our industry. And over the years, as Alan had just mentioned, people come in and out of our business. To talk about ethics, ethics is knowing the difference between what you have the right to do and what you do right. It's a big difference, because as I've seen in this influx of agents in the market, both Kathy and Alan had covered some of my stuff already, so I'm going to skip around a little bit, but there's been a change in the way people's mindsets are. People come into this business to make money, and I'm all about making money. It's good, though in what we do, people are starting to cut corners and doing things that aren't necessarily proper. I've seen some of the complaints that have come down on the real estate side, and we have a strict code of ethics. Does anybody know how long that's been around?
1912. It was somewhere in that.
13. Yeah. 110 years. So, and it's evolved over time. So we're, we need to stick to that. Has anybody actually read it?
Not memorized it, but we
Okay.
have big ethics.
I think everybody should. There's some really good information in it, and I have some information from it, but I can't tell you what every article and standard of practice says. But it's important that we have some knowledge of it and we're able to reference it when we need it. Let's talk a little bit about Article 1. Protect the best interest of the client. And have you ever had an agent on the other side of a transaction that says, we're asking X amount of dollars, but we'll take this? Well, that's not acting in the best interest of the client, though it's probably good for us, acting in the best interest of our clients. But there is a difference, and we need to know that. I talked about doing this for money. When people come in to do things for money, I've learned early on that it's human nature to cut corners, and it's just the wrong focus, certainly in my opinion. Going forward, hold on. So going forward, people try to cut corners to save time, and it is of my opinion, you can't save time. You can only spend it wisely. So with that focus, you need to make sure you're doing what it is proper in your business. When it comes time to Article 2, which is misrepresentation, you can't misrepresent a property. And if you've seen some of the comments on properties, they make everything look good, whether it is or not. And I think it's important to make sure that we don't exaggerate in our listings, and we, tell people the truth, because that is ultimately what's going to come up, excuse me, and bite you in the back if you're not careful. I pretty much kept myself out of trouble over 43 years by disclosing. So disclose, disclose, disclose. Don't hide any information, and it will save you later. This is actually a people business, not a house business. We need to focus on that. Our first priority is to protect our clients, but we also have to look out for each other. We have to have, as Kathy mentioned, we have to cooperate. We have to be good to each other, because at the end of the day, if you want to stay in this business for a long time, you're not doing the right things. Somebody sees you walking up the driveway, they're going to go, and if an offer is presented and you're not forthcoming with the proper information, if you don't pre-qualify your clients, it's going to make a difference if you're in a competitive offer situation. People know who the agents that are doing their homework are, and will ultimately bring that information to their clients to accept an offer. So it's really important to not misrepresent your client's qualifications, among other things.
Wait, Steve, can I ask you a question?
And please ask questions. Go ahead.
So Steve, you said something that I say all the time here and at my brokerage, like this is the way I phrase it is a relationship driven.
Absolutely.
Right, industry. And it's not just the relationship that we have with our clients by being fiduciaries and giving them great service, but with the real estate agents.
Correct.
Why don't you, can you please explain some better ways that we can increase the relationships of professionalism? And I know some of them are very simple that we were talking about on the phone the other day.
Yeah, well, as simple as just be involved in the association. And when people new in the business, the first thing I say is get involved. Be involved, not only selling property, but be involved in the real estate industry. And as time goes on, you're going to learn things from each other. You're going to create those relationships moving forward that I think will benefit everybody's career. I started on the board of directors here, I don't know how many years ago, long time ago. And I've moved up. I was president of the New Haven Association when we merged with Middlesex. And that was actually on my watch, and I'm proud of that because we helped create this environment, which is, in my opinion, the best in the state, quite frankly. So, Dawn is a big part of keeping things on track and moving us all forward. So
Shout out to Dawn. Let's go.
did that answer your question?
That as well as, I don't want to
Yeah,
steal
no.
your lines, but we're talking about, I've seen, at least in the last couple of years, a lot more transactions trying to be done over text message.
I gotta get to that.
Oh,
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
all right.
So when you talk about communication, that's actually my next
That's the next
topic. So communication is very important within, the community of realtors, and everybody wants to text. There's a place for texting, and I do it myself. However, people don't spell properly. You can't tell you can't tell what's going on in the conversation and the true feeling of what they're trying to say with a text message. Pick up the phone, talk to somebody. And for God's sake, return a phone call. People, you leave them a message or their voicemail is full. Please text me. No, you need to talk to people. Communication is important. Electronic, again, has its place. And again, we all do it, but it's really important to get your point across properly by actually talking to people. So did that answer your question?
You did.
I look at that 3 ways, depending on what the topic is. If I'm letting Steve, my homeowner, know that we have a request for a showing, I'll shoot you a quick text. Hey.
Yep.
Simple, raw. I don't need any emotion involved.
And there's a place for
It's
that.
just passing information along. If I'm dealing with Steve because I need to beat him up on his price and we're actually negotiating stuff. Now you need the inflection in your voice. You need to talk to Steve, you need to beat Steve through negotiation. I'm calling.
Good luck with that.
I know, I had a lot of fun. You really have seen over the years. Third, if it's legal, I'm sending an email. So those are the 3 ways that I communicate based upon what we're talking about and what kind of trail I need to leave. And certainly if we're negotiating, I'm saying stuff, I have inflection in my voice. I might get a little annoyed, I might get a little happy, but at least there's nothing there as we talk about. This is one. We were just talking. I mean, there's no text, there's no email.
No, and I'm all for
So you gotta
paper
look at-
trail and everything.
I had a
Um,
forward to that.
What's that?
I had a forward.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it's something when you call somebody and there's something that's super important that they said that you're concerned about. Make sure you say, for our firm, send an email, for our phone conversation, you want to number off.
Followed up on the lead.
Absolutely.
With complaints,
Like,
there's-
sometimes you need that, or you actually do both of those. I don't necessarily think you need to send a text following up after a phone call, but I definitely think an email is always helpful.
I agree with that, and I do that as well. So, yeah.
I have a, client sign a contract for that they've read it and they've signed it and they said, okay, send it over. I have them send me a separate email. We've discussed it further. Yes, I'm happy with this. Please send my offer. I do not just send the offer because it seems that sometimes an hour later they have a brain thing going on.
And sometimes they just don't pay attention.
Yeah.
So I just literally,
But I want them to send this over.
so literally this morning, I have an offer accepted on a listing. And there's a attorney review on it. So I asked the other agent to send me the sign off and acceptance of that. So
By a certain date.
today, yeah, so please send it to me, because again, if it's an open-ended, they could wait till the day before closing and say, well, we've decided we didn't want to do this. So I need to protect my client who is a property owner.
Can I say one last thing? So I think we were talking about communication, professional standards of like how to protect ourselves, our clients, but I also believe that what I don't see a lot in the industry right now is the phone call of like when you're scheduling a showing. Like a lot of times if my clients send me 5 properties to see, and I know which one is of maximum interest, and I can't call all 5, I'll at least try to reach out to the listing agents, even though I scheduled their showing time, to build that relationship. And you'd be surprised at how many realtors on the other end are like, oh, hey, why are you calling? Have you seen it? And I'm like, oh, no, I'm just calling, wanted to ask a few questions about the property. And it's increased my relationship with them, and it's definitely got some offers accepted and placed my client in, a beneficial position, because I'm the one that took the time to make that phone call and just build a little bit of rapport with the other real estate agent.
I think it also gives you a feel for what their personality is and who you're dealing with.
Exactly.
And that's huge.
Yeah, and on the flip side, be polite, out the goddamn feedback form, honestly.
I
Give that feedback to that agent. I need it, I like it, I think it's just professionalism and do it. What's that?
Sometimes you fill it out and you get.
Right. Sometimes you never get some agents. It helps us out, and when I'm showing your properties, I give you honest feedback, that's kind of like a little detail that takes me 1 minute to write up.
Right.
Make the note on the MLS sheet while you're looking at the property, the rooms were too small, or, whatever your client, it's just, I'm not feeling it. All right, great, that's a reason. I don't like this property. It sucks. Okay, fine, it sucks, put that in the feedback, be honest there. And I think that also builds the relationship as well, even though we can't do business on this one.
Yeah, no, I would agree. So it sounds like communication is a key factor.
Exactly. It's
Communication is huge.
You're in your email every day, just do it.
Understood. Want to talk about a couple other things. Main thing is Article 4 and 5 of our Code of Ethics says disclose any personal interest in a property. And we're all in the real estate business. Realtors are buying properties, and I encourage it. I do it myself. There's also flippers, and I'm all for that. I've done flips as early as the early 90s. And I think when you buy a property, you take the risk, you go ahead and make the profit at the end of the day. It's good for you. I want to touch on wholesaling. Does anybody have an idea of what that is?
I do going out, but.
Okay. Well, if you want to add something.
Do you want to just explain it for the people that do not know?
So wholesaling is when, and I'm gonna try to say this without getting my opinions on this. So wholesaling is, I go out and I'm using me, I'm not a real estate agent, so who knows? I go out and find a property, and then I go and I sell it to an investor. I sell my contract with the seller to an investor. That's basically what you're doing, right?
You sell the
You're
right.
signing
buy-
You're right.
sell the right-
You sell
Buy the property.
No, you're selling the contracts.
Right.
You're signing, in essence, you're signing your position out of the contract for $1.
Correct.
Right.
So with that said, I think, and I've seen in practice, people buying lists of property owners that, and you could buy lists specific to almost anything now. People have been in their properties for 40 and 50 years. They paid $78,000 for their property. An investor will call them and say, we'll buy a property for $300,000. And then put it down a minimum deposit. And again, this is just an example. I know it could happen many other ways, but they'll put down a minimum deposit. They'll run the inspection contingency almost to the day of closing. Then they go out and find somebody to buy that property for more money. And I was discussing with an attorney, and this one specific example, they ran, again, the inspection contingency to the very end to the closing date. And at the 11th hour, they went ahead and did their inspection where the seller was already ready to get out of there. And they come back and say, we need to knock $25,000 off the price of this house in order to move forward. Now, I think that's disingenuous.
Was the seller represented with the real estate agent?
No.
Yeah, well, there's your problem.
Well, there's your problem. So where I'm going with this is it's fine as long as, but in some cases, they think they're working with a real estate agent. Because if somebody's got an LLC that says XYZ Real Estate
With an attorney.
LLC, they assume they're working with an agent. So where I get sideways on this stuff, and to do it is not an issue, but I go back to disclose. Because at the end of the day, in many of those transactions, there's nobody protecting the public. As realtors, we need to protect the public. That's one of the first things we have to do. And I'm adamant about that. We all could be making a little more money if we wanted to cut those corners. And if we wanted to, hurt somebody, not that we want to hurt somebody, but don't have the regard for that person. I think it's a big problem, and I think it needs to be regulated. There are no regulations about it. So to do what you have the right to do, then go ahead and do what's right. I don't think it's right to take advantage of people in that respect. Not that every wholesaler's doing it, but there are some really ugly stories out there about how people are getting hurt. And as a realtor, somebody says, I want to sell my house. Okay, I sit down with them. The first question I ask is, where are you going to go? And sure enough, in some cases, wholesalers don't care. So now you have people needing to scramble to find something. They're not realtors. They're not helping them on the other end. And I think we owe it to the public to make sure if somebody is going to put their house on the market, they at least have an idea of where to go. I actually did a simultaneous sale and buy yesterday, which is getting really difficult with the limited inventory that we have. But where I'm going with that is you have to care about the person who's selling their house. You have to represent them properly and ultimately get them to where they need to go. So that's just my thought on that. Thoughts, questions, comments? Wow, that was easy. Or maybe not.
We have one in the front and we are running short of time.
Real fast, I had a gentleman make an offer on a multifamily. Later, I kept saying, where's the deposit check? Where's the deposit check? Oh, the bank sent, oh, the attorney's going to send that check. The attorney's gonna send the check. I said, something's weird here. Oh, he has 1.8 million, he's buying multiple properties, da, da, da. Come to find out, he did make 9 other offers. And
Simultaneously.
And 3 of them blew up because at the end he decided he couldn't spend that money. And he turns around and he says, what? We'll rewrite the contract. And we'll do it with me getting a mortgage. I'm like, you're gonna be able to get a freaking mortgage after that? Brand new first time investor, 1.5, try to get a mortgage on it afterwards. I'm like, don't do that. You're gonna lock yourself up and you're still not gonna be able to.
Were they represented by anyone?
Yes, they were. An agent, and the agent completely went like this each time. And then I found out from 2 other agents, they did the same thing.
Well, there goes to the point of you need to pay attention. You need to
But
qualify.
they signed off for the other saying, oh, we'll leave $2,000 down and we'll go and get a mortgage. But they signed it. I'm like, why would you have them sign that? You're gonna hold them up another 6 months. And one of the attorneys said, oh, we'll just have them sign it. I said, no, you can't do that to my client. They want to sell it now. And then you're gonna lose the whole market,
They were lucky they have you.
Yeah.
So
Be
I'm not-
aware, you guys.
jump on that really quickly. You guys as listing agents really should be checking pre-approvals. I've gotten 3 completely fraudulent bank statements, fraudulent,
Checks.
not checks, pre-approvals. So this one, it was going on, dragging on for weeks. The attorney and I were the ones that actually figured out that the whole thing was fraud, because nobody checked to verify that the letter that was provided for a proof of funds was actually from a legitimate source.
Right.
So you gotta get careful.
So when I represent a buyer, Carolyn McGinnis is my go-to lender. They do everything right. They check, they not only pre-approve, but they pre-qualify. And there's a difference, because I've seen pre-approval letters that have nothing to do with reality, as Kishore is saying. So it's really important to know who the lender is. When I see a pre-approval coming in from Kelly on one of my listings with somebody else, I take that to the bank, because I know the homework's been done up front. And when you're in a competitive offer situation, multiple offers, and you have a pre-approval for a dollar amount that doesn't even match the offer. I mean, how are they paying attention? So I make sure that's all done properly.
My question along these lines was for Kishore. What is the state statute on earnest money? How many days is it? 3?
I will go over that in mine.
Okay, good. Yeah, because I want to know what that, because that. Another development of potential. Goddamn money, otherwise I don't have anything going on.
Steve, I got a question that you mentioned earlier that I think will help you too. What is the agent's duty? Like, so I see a lot of properties where I get the listing. Off the end, like you guys sent it to me and it says like a 3-bedroom house, right? And then when we go into the tax field card, it's only zoned as a 1-bedroom, like approved for 1-bedroom. What is the agent's duty to actually go and check the field card to make sure that's accurate? You guys have a.
I don't know that there's anything specific, but I always do. You know, I look at it.
My appraisal.
Yeah.
And as an appraiser, when I go in there, it's got to match what's on the field card. I just did one multi and they had a whole apartment
Right.
last week in the basement. Whole third apartment in the basement. And it's subject to removal or approval of the kitchen and the bathroom in the basement. And if I don't put that in there, and God forbid there's a fire. Okay, now they're gonna come back to me and say, oh, well, a couple months ago, you just did the appraisal on this place, how come you didn't bring it up? So I think as realtors and brokers, I think we need to say to our clients, we might run into this problem with the appraiser. We should run into the problem with the appraiser. And I think that's just about all we're really responsible for, but on the appraisal side, my other business, this shit doesn't match up, and I better make sure I put it in the appraisal.
And I have a listing coming up that is on the field card of 2-family because it's grandfathered in, the house is very old.
Right.
It's also in an R20 zone with 1.39 acres. And most agents would sell it as a single family on one lot. Well, an R20 zone is 20,000 square feet. You could probably get, based on the amount of square footage of the lot,
Right.
up to 3 lots in this case. And I call the land use administrator in the town and I say, you know, what are the chances of us getting this subdivided?
Yeah.
And when they tell you it's highly probable,
Yeah.
at least I could represent.
Best use.
Correct. And that will add value because a lot literally across the street sold for 150,000. So that might add $150,000 to that property. So you got to do your homework and check your field cards and see where you go.
Which comes back to Kathy Ellison's original statement. Ask a lot of questions. I think we talked about that in a couple of my last trainings, like the quality of your life is directly correlated with the quality of questions you ask yourself and other people.
You should go into the listing agreement with a printed copy of the field card and running through that and checking off on your copy that, you got 3 bedrooms. Yeah, you got, oh, wait, it says 1.5. Oh, well, you know, I get the half full. Okay, great.
But
Hopefully that doesn't stay.
so the MLS is supposed to reflect what's in the property records. So if you find listings that are not accurately reflecting that, you can
Square footage and the bathrooms, doesn't it?
they're not, so it gives you the flexibility of changing those things, but when you enter a listing as a realtor, you're supposed to enter what's on the property records. But
What you see.
we see often that they don't, and if you find those listings, you can call the MLS and discuss that, because then you're not supposed to, going back to ethics, you're not supposed to advertise it improperly. And if you have unpermitted work in the basement, like bathrooms and things like that, you would need to note that, listen it.
Yeah, well, I can tell you on the appraisal side, that aspect is getting more and more intense. They want us to really make sure that things that we physically see are on the field card, and if not, there's a section of whatever in the appraisal.
Yeah.
So as my brokerage side, that's what I do. I go right in with the field card and I say, okay, right. This is wrong, and this is wrong. Merry Christmas, you haven't been taxed on it for a while, but just to let you know, it might come up on the appraisal side of it.
On the in-law part of it in Milford, they have a whole new rule. and I don't-
In-laws are nuts.
Yeah, and
So tell us what you want to-
yeah, I don't know what the new rule is in Milford, but they had a big town meeting about
State law was supposed to change.
And if
that.
it's in-laws,
That-
you want to-
They've talked of legislation around that, though. but still out
Make
there.
it easier
Yeah.
for accessory.
Which
Yeah.
brings up a great point. I think it was yesterday was the New Haven Middlesex Association of Realtors Legislation Committee. I believe that was held on. Zoom
Absolutely.
yesterday, so
And it just, you know, and I suggest everybody join it.
You get
It's,
very well informed about these.
you know, no, really, before you leave today, get on the email list.
No, actually, that's my son.
I think that,
No, it's really a good.
But I know it's in the emails that you get from New Haven Middlesex. Steve, I'm sorry to cut you short. It was a very stimulating.
Yeah.
You know.
I hope it was helpful. And
It
again,
was. Thank you.
if anybody has any questions ever, I'm easy to be found.
And they'll be hanging out after this.
And one other thing,
Network with
I
them.
just want to say, be good to each other, be genuine,
Mm.
stay humble, people.
Yeah. Stay humble. All right, well, thank you, Steve. I knew that was gonna be a great one. A lot of questions. Steve will be here after if you want to talk with him as well. We're gonna move on to the next segment. All right, and the next segment is gonna be you, Stephanie Paul.
Yes.
So Stephanie she is extremely intelligent. I've known Stephanie for like 7 years. She got involved with the YPN. You can do it.
Yeah.
All right. She got involved with your professional network when it first started. And what Stephanie's going to be talking here about today, which I'm sure you're going to appreciate, is how do you want to phrase it?
So Kelly pulled me up here because we find we have a lot of issues with appraisals. So you seem like you'll be pretty knowledgeable about this. I'm just going through, I'm not going to help you price your property to actively market it and get the best price out there. That's on you guys to figure out. That'll rely a lot more on active listings to your competition. I just want to give you a general way of looking at properties, what you have for your closed comps to get an idea if it can appraise out.
Super important.
And, you know, if it can't, it's just something you can talk to your clients about and handle it upfront rather than having issues in the middle of a deal.
This is an important conversation to be having, especially right now with extremely low inventory, because we see bidding wars, bidding prices up, and then that's what we come.
Last January was out of control. I mean, it was just,
In terms of share, this house, that house, this house, I had plenty to work with. Now that it's really starting to slow down, you really gotta start watching the numbers because I'm not putting my back on the line for your deal.
I know.
You know, I've got requirements on that side too.
well, but so the whole point of this, I couldn't figure it out, so I tried. The whole point of it is, you know, this is a conversation you can have up front when your offer is accepted, how we're expecting this to almost not appraise out. So how are we going to handle the appraisal when we get there? And then hopefully keep the deal together.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, yeah, but I was going to go on the MLS.
Oh, yeah, I'll do that for you. And then I'm gonna have to share the screen right after that. I don't know if you want. Or do you want to use yours or what do you want to do?
Whatever.
What do you want to
Is
do?
this your MLS?
This is the MLS, yeah, so,
Why does yours look so much different than
Why
me? No,
would-
you're on SmartMLS.com.
right, what are you using?
I'm not even 100% sure that's the password.
I didn't read it, so.
Hold on.
So while she's getting us situated with the MLS, there's actually food back there. If you want to take a second to go grab it. bring it
Oh,
back to the
yeah,
desk.
everybody eat.
You know,
Don't pay attention.
only because it did arrive early and, you know, thank you. Jackie from Asking Church for providing the food. If you guys want to go get some food and then maybe, what?
They asked if I made it. I said,
She did not make it. It's catered, you know.
Where's it from?
Milford Marketplace. Guilford Market.
My cousin's boyfriend just opened up next to Pokemoto, a new place in Guilford. Moonshots. Yeah, yep. I'll try to get them to come over here. But they're busy.
Hi, this is Rachel and I have a question for the Zoomers.
Yes.
I have a Zoomer signed in as Zoom user, but they're asking me if I can sign them up for some of the upcoming meetings. I have a message into you to ask you what your name is, please. So if you are signed in to Zoom as Zoom user, please chat me your name.
Hit Rachel in the DM. Press now.
What?
Can you get a picture of all the presenters?
All right.
Well, we're on a little bit of a break.
Yeah, fine. What do you guys do for sure up here?
Oh,
Kathy. She was a picture. Well, I don't know what. What?
Sit up there.
Yeah.
No.
I didn't put them up there. But yeah, we can take them away. We can all stand up next to each other. For those of you on Zoom, we look forward to seeing you in person next time. I'm gonna ask you to Guilford Marketplace.
No.
No longer the suits. Like in jeans and a t-shirt or no. Jeans and like button down. To be honest. Steve coming up right now.
Can't think I'm being in person forever.
I know it's been a really long time.
I know.
Awesome.
Social rights. Thank you.
Everybody's looking off at the camera. I'm over here staring at the press. So they didn't know they were taking a picture. And of course, everybody shared that. Nobody shared that.
All right, we're gonna, for those of you in the hallway, we're gonna start getting started because I just want to make sure that the last two presenters have enough time. I have very strong inkling there will be a lot of questions with these two presenters.
Want me to get started?
We got great information. Yeah, we can get started.
All right.
They'll be.
Okay. So, appraisals are an unfortunate necessity that we have with, I would say, probably 95% of the deals that we're doing right now, unless you have cash or your client got their appraisal waived, you're going to be dealing with it. You're going to be dealing with some bad appraisers, and I'll show you a couple examples of things that I was not too happy about at the end. But for the most part, you can prepare for it, you can get ready for it, you can talk to your client about it. What an appraiser is going to be looking for is bracketing. You'll hear it all the time if you talk to one. Essentially, what they're looking for is the sales price, the actual sales price of a comp, and the adjusted sales price of a comp. If you don't know what adjustments are, they're going to adjust for square footage, bedroom, or not necessarily bedrooms, square footage, bathrooms, and a multitude of other things, condition. So they're going to look at the sale price of the house, and they're going to look at the adjusted sales price of the house, and they're going to want the subject property to fall in the middle of the lowest and the highest comps. So on both ends, you're going to, when you're looking at comps, you're going to want to look at it. Is the sales price, do I have one that's closed lower? Do I have one that's closed higher? If you do, and they're in the realm of the same style, same square footage, similar within a mile, you're probably going to be pretty good. If you're looking at condos, they're going to try to stick into the same complex if they have an opportunity to. If they travel outside, they're going to need a reason to. They're going to need justification to get outside of that complex when there is solid comps within the complex. So let me just actually grab a chair here. It's okay. All right. There's the message of the day, you guys, in case you were looking at it, but you're all here. I read every single one of mine, but I also work from a desk and I'm not on the road. So it's a little bit easier for me. So I sold my cousin a house a couple of years ago, and so I'm going to use her as an example. She has a 1,100 square foot ranch in Clinton. And she bought it as a flip and remodeled. And so I went this morning just to take a quick look and see what the comps were like. My first step is always to stick within a mile. And see what I come up with. Appraisers are going to want to use, if they have enough data for 6 months, they're going to want to use 6 months. They're not going to want to go back a year if they can find the comps that'll go back this far. And then I always stick to the same style when, if possible. You're going to see there's only 3 matches here. So when I ran this through this morning very quickly, I noticed that I would probably expand my search a little more. With a ranch, they might use a raised ranch, they might use a split. They might use a colonial if there's a reason to use a colonial. But if you have the ability to find the ranches that work for them, they're going to try to. I can already tell you this isn't going to be enough. 3 comps in the last 6 months. You know, you have a wide range of properties here. They're going to try to find something more similar to hers. So I would personally go back and maybe look 2 miles. I do just want to make sure I'm still in Clinton. I've never seen, and maybe you can answer this, I've never seen an appraiser go out of the town. Maybe in some more rural areas.
One parcel,
Mhm.
if it's complex, you have a ranch, so yes, splits, raised ranches, I always think number of levels of living space. So you stick that way, you can't find a lot of it, then maybe get into capes, because maybe that's 1.5.
I always
Miles
kind of
out.
keep capes.
Here, I want to stay within that neighborhood, so I
Yeah.
actually draw on the map.
Well, you'll see here, you can
Yeah.
look at the map and you can kind of see where this
So
is
then I
going
put in the jump to address, the actual address.
right there.
Yeah. and
This is right
okay,
here.
This is Clinton, I want to stay north of I-95. I want to stay south of I-95.
Oh, sorry.
So good.
Or if you're right on the water.
Yeah, if you're right on the border, I'll go north or south of it, without a doubt.
So there was just one that I looked at in North Haven. It was a multi-family home in North Haven. There's been 4 in
Yeah,
the last year.
exactly.
So, you know, this was on the border of Hamden. I explored Hamden, but that's probably more for pricing for your listing. More than what an appraiser is going to use because,
Plenty of multis in here.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I would just go through quickly. There's only 23 properties here. Going back, I opened it up to raised ranches and split levels just to get a little wider view of what we're looking at. I know her property has been completely rehabbed, so we're looking at the higher end of comps, and so I would start there. And then I would just look through and make sure that we have a comp that closed above, a comp that closed lower, similar square footage. I wouldn't go more than 10% above or below the square footage. So this is 1,100. So I really would try to stick somewhere between, 1,000 and 1,350, I would say, if you can. They're going to adjust for square footage on the main level, and they're going to adjust for square footage on the lower level as well. So take those into consideration when you're looking at this, because that might help to add some value to your property for the appraisal purpose. I picked out a couple this morning. It ended up being right around this kind of 389, 375 Ds. And then there's this one right here. It's a little further out than I'd like, but it's very similar to her house. 1-car garage, remodeled house, closed for 440. The fact that we have something here at 440 with a similar square footage makes me believe that, we're probably looking in that 380 to 390 mark for her house, but I'm not concerned about an appraisal because we have this. And it closed relatively recently, within the last 6 months or so. So for hers, it's not something I would be concerned about. I went and I looked at my dad's property this morning, and he's in Spring Glen in Hamden, and he has a split level. And Spring Glen in Hamden, if you don't know it, is filled with colonials, 1920s colonials. And he has a 1950s split level, which is very different than the rest of the properties that are in that neighborhood. So I'll do a quick little one with him, and I'll show you what I came up with. because this one would present a little bit more of a problem. Oh, sorry, let me add split. So there's 4 properties in the last, I think I did year on this one that are similar to his, just by style and within a mile. And there's plenty of comps in Spring Glen. There's a lot of houses. There's small lots. So you could definitely, if I open this up to colonials and capes and things like that, we'd have a lot more options to show you. This to me is not giving a good reflection of what my dad's house is worth. Spring Glen is a lot nicer than, a lot more valuable, I should say, than some of these other neighborhoods that we're looking here. So I would probably pick one of these out, and an appraiser's probably going to use one of these because they're going to want to at least throw a split on there, or something really comparable in style. But I would also open this up for my dad. I would go in closer than a mile, stick in directly into Spring Glen, and open it up to all styles and try to find something. He has 1,500 square feet. So try to find something 1,250 to 1,750 with 3 bedrooms. I don't adjust for bedrooms. I don't know if you do. I always do square footage. If you have a 2-bedroom, that makes it a little more difficult because a lot of buyers want that 3rd bedroom. So you're going to want to try to find on your comps something with just 2 bedrooms to make sure that the appraiser has something similar, because just like they're going to want the prices to be above and below, they're going to want to have at least some sort of comparable bedroom space when you're different than the rest of the comparables. And the same thing goes if you're in a higher end neighborhood. If all your comps have 5 bedrooms and you only have 3, they're going to want to try to find one that has at least 3 in it to show the value is accurate. So for my dad, for this one, I would probably go in, scroll all the way in here and find a couple that are just around his street. And this 390, we're probably looking more like a 360 for his house, is a more accurate number than what the splits were bringing up. But they're probably still going to use the split, at least one of them. They're probably still going to throw that on. So when you're looking at 390 and you're looking at 300, your appraisal is probably going to come out somewhere in the middle of that. I have a couple notes here. I don't know how to, here it is. Okay. So here are a couple of appraisals that I don't know. Has anybody ever tried to fight an appraisal? How many have won? I think I've won 2. And there was a long time when the market was increasing that no appraisal would put a market increase on as an adjustment. So that's kind of why Kelly threw me up here, because I was fighting with every single appraisal and bringing the data provided by SmartMLS to the table. And even when you showed them the data, they did not want to add a market adjustment for increase on there. So we were in this battle for a long time. It seems to have steadied out a little bit more. But when we were in the recession, and I was around in real estate in the recession, when we were in the recession, they dropped money off of that as a market adjustment in a second. But it took a solid year of data to be able to get appraisers to start adding value in. You're not going to see that anymore for the foreseeable future. I can't imagine.
Can you show us what line item that is?
So that would be down here somewhere. You would see a market adjustment down in the bottom. They would add it in. This particular one here, this was one I tried to fight and lost. And I'm not surprised that I did. When I looked up the comps for this property, when we sold it, I knew that we were going to be dealing with this one in the 255 range. And, you know, the sale price was up towards maybe even 295. I can't recall.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's more for the crowd.
Yep.
How many of you look at the appraisal reports for your clients pretty frequently?
You won't always get them.
Yeah, you won't always get them, but if you request and with permission from the client, you can get them. You would, I know, at least I advise the realtors that work for me, you would highly suggest that realtors should look at as many of these as possible, because they should start to get an idea for the adjustments, because the adjustments are different towns, different markets, and you want to be able to get a feel for that. when you're fighting.
I don't love appraisals. I don't think they should be necessary, but you have to deal with them. And so you should know them. Because you should know what you're looking at. You should know how to talk to your client about them. And you should know how to talk to an appraiser when they come to you and say, I'm not changing anything on this appraisal. You have to, when you fight an appraisal, you have to know what you're talking about. And in order to know what you're talking about, you have to learn the document. It's not very complex. It looks like a lot of papers, and sometimes one of these is probably like 35 papers they add in. This is your most important section here. They will always have 3 comps. Sometimes they have a 4th, but they don't put any weight on it. They just throw it on for purposes of covering and making sure that they throw it on there. So in case somebody questions them in the future, I know you guys get questioned a lot too. And so you have to answer to a lot of people and making sure that your data is valid.
Yeah, there's a lot of players involved. The USPAP, which is the national regulatory committee, has a ton of requirements on each appraisal that make it an appraisal and not a CMA.
Yep.
Plus you have all of the bank's specific requirements as well.
Yep.
And you should really just look at an appraisal as I am the eyes and ears for the bank. The bank wants to know what the hell they're funding and what they're financing. And so rather than having their representatives go out and take photos and do the research, that's when they hire the appraisers to do the same thing. So as agents and brokers, you have to go into your listing appointments with, makes no difference what anybody else says this place is worth. With banks, the buyer's bank, appraiser thinks it's worth is it. Period. Nobody else's opinion matters. That's what I've learned over all these years.
So what makes it tough too.
I didn't do the appraisal side of it.
But that's what makes it tough. So you're up against one person that coming in.
Attributes of that specific subject property, and we're going to try to nail it as much as possible. If Frank doesn't want to listen with me, go ahead, call Coldwell Banker and waste their time.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah. It's something you're up against. I think
You gotta nail your schedule.
you do. And I usually takes me somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes to price most properties just by getting it. But I don't ever give it, I'm not teaching you here how to come up with a finite price of what the property is going to appraise at, because there are variables. You're going to have different appraisers.
Right.
Some know what they're doing, some don't. Some like the Kelly McGinnis, which she could explain a little bit better than me, but they have their own set of appraisers, which allows for more communication when fighting an appraisal. Do you? Nice. So, you need to have a general idea if this property, if your listing or your buyer's property that they're looking for is going to appraise out, you need to know if it's possible.
Which I just want to
God.
pile on that a little bit too, which goes back to what Kathy was saying, what Steve was saying, ask a lot of questions, communication is key, especially if you're on the listing side and you see a pre-approval come across from a broker, a pre-approval brokerage that you've never seen before. Call them, ask them, where are they from? Do they sell in this area often? Do they have local appraisers? What's your relationship with them?
None of these were prime appraisers, so.
Yeah, so those are key components.
This is the issue we deal with, yeah.
Those are key components that you, in order to go back to what Steve was saying, becoming a fiduciary on behalf of your sellers and asking these questions, because that is probably one of the biggest variables I've seen over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Is and
We have a question in the chat.
okay, David.
How
and-
does,
All right, Rachel, you go first.
how do finished basements affect the appraisal?
They will adjust them at a lower rate per square foot. So, if you're looking at $35 a square foot for a $300,000 house, something around there, you'd probably get in that $20 a square foot for a finished lower level.
So you said 2/3 of it, is that what you said?
Not necessarily, it's going to vary, right? They're going to look at the data. If all of your comps they're going to look and see if all of the comps in the area, for example, if you're in a raised ranch neighborhood, if they all have finished lower levels, they're almost going to be expected to have a finished lower level. And so they might weight that differently and they might put a different cost on that. It's not an exact science, it's more of an art. And so you'll have to look and see, what kind of neighborhood I'm looking in. I wouldn't go so far as to doing, you know, you can do adjustments on a property if you want to, just have a general idea. Somewhere between a half and 2/3 for a lower level, but that really depends on, you know, what neighborhood you're looking in.
So I learned.
David and then Steve.
Early on, I quiz and I interview my appraisers. And I started doing that because I had two appraisers back to back. Where one of them wasn't, let's say, dressed appropriately for the neighborhood. And she was even afraid to get out of the car to go to the appraisal. So there's no way that person's going to be able to give you a fair valuation of that property. There was another time I did an appraisal, it was like literally 3 weeks later. And the appraiser opened the door, you know, we did our kind of usual talk, and I handed him from the comps that I had that go for better. I knew the neighborhood quite well. And he looked at me and said, "There's no freaking way this house is worth more than mine." So I started asking them, and one of the things don't ask an open question like, "Have you done this before?" I always say, "If you give me an address of a property you appraised in me." Sometimes they'll tell me, "No, there's a conflict of interest, that's an ethics violation," or whatever they want to say or make up. Sometimes they'll chat with you about the neighborhood and they'll tell you the local coffee shop. So I always ask those questions when the appraiser calls to make the appointment. And do not let appraisers make appointments through, if it's my listing or if I'm doing a refinance, I do not let appraisers make appointments through show assist. And if they do, I want to call them, I want to talk to them because of that. Because you will get people who are outside the neighborhoods don't understand, especially if you get in areas like Haven, where literally if you cross a train tracks or a market segment. And a lot of times appraisers won't understand that. Not every half-mile radius is the same, you know, especially when.
Just like Spring Glen. Yep.
Like Spring Glen,
Yep.
you know, and-
You know, you find your splits in a different neighborhood and they're not really relative. And that's something I don't hand appraisers comps. I find that they don't like when I do that. And so I give them more of a conversation of we're always here for support. And, you know, if we were nervous about an appraisal from doing my little review of it, then we might handle it a little bit differently and talk to them upfront. But I do find that they don't, some of them like when you give them town information and so that they don't have to go down there and do it themselves. But for the most part, I find they don't even want us to give them comps. They want to do it on their
I
own.
think at the end of the day, it's managing your relationship with your client.
That's what it
You
comes
know,
down to.
I'm on the side more than I am on the appraisal side. And you just have to work with your seller. And make sure that your relationship with your seller is solid and you've already looked over the numbers before you even sign that listing agreement.
Yep. Controlling the narrative.
Just make sure the appraiser is qualified, because it's a lot easier to turn the appraiser away than it's trying to fight one.
You almost definitely will not win when fighting an appraisal. So, and you know, and I give some solid data to prove. We had a multifamily that was renovated once and the appraiser was refusing to give a condition value to it because in a multifamily home, there's really, he could not find data that showed that it was beneficial to have a multifamily home completely renovated. So I think I went back like 5 years and had to prove it to him that, but it's not easy to find that, you know, it's a lot of work and they need to justify it to somebody as well. So you really have to prove it to them if you want it to get changed, but it is after the fact is hard. So if you do have a line of communication with the appraiser before they hand it in, it's definitely more helpful.
Steve, and then we can hang out afterwards, I hope, because we are coming to the end of it.
So just really quick, you have to be honest with your clients for what I call fit and finish of their house. It's not just condition, it's if the basement lower level is finished, and the corners go together, is there something missing? And some people think just because it's finished, it's worth X amount of dollars, but I believe there are different levels. of finishing
Quality.
Which we have to keep an eye on.
Yeah, especially if you're in a higher end and you have a really not nice finished basement, they're not going to give you much value for that.
We have one more comment and then we'll close out this segment.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I'm a loan originator. I won't say where I work, because I know Kelly. You share it with the lender as well, if you have a mortgage going on, because I've had appraisals thrown out for somebody who's like, the appraiser said something very inappropriate. And they told me, thankfully the client told me, and we just threw that out, ordered a new one. So, you know, this goes back to.
You can't share what they said.
Talk to everybody. They said, you know, you're not gonna get 250 for this, but I'll buy it for 210.
Oh, wow.
Okay, and then thankfully the client.
And then he wholesales it. Just kidding.
Thankfully, the client told me, you gotta go, you know, obviously,
Yeah.
the price came in lower than they wanted. You gotta throw it out order a new one, so you can, you know, there could be,
Can.
if there's something that happens, tell us, the lender wants to know. We wanna fight for it, too. I mean, we're on the same team.
Kelly's gone to bat for us too. I mean, but I don't think you guys can have a communication with the appraisal, can you?
We do, yeah. we
The
do.
appraiser?
Yeah,
I think
so we
three
have-
scenarios department, correct?
We have an intermediary.
Yeah, okay,
person at the bank, so I can't call the appraiser.
exactly.
But we tell our manager.
You have a department that'll handle it.
But you gotta remember that each appraiser for that bank is called back and said, change this, change this, change this.
Mhm.
No, this is wrong, you know, so they're getting it from both sides.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They have to answer to somebody as well too. So like every single thing is scrutinized on it. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
I knew that this section would be a lot of stimulant.
I didn't even go over those,
Thank
but we
you.
can do that. another time.
If you have more questions, Stephanie will be here. She's been doing that for years. She's obviously very good at it, and it's critical to know how to do. For multiple, we could have talked for hours about that.
So I have my computer, and the only reason I have my computer and I'm not showing it is 'cause I don't have a blank contract. I only have contracts with my clients' names and info on it.
Yep.
So I have the contract up, so if you see me looking down, it's not, you're not missing anything. This is the New Haven Association of Realtor contract that I'm referring to. Everybody has a one-page sheet, and I'm actually gonna walk back to grab another one to
So for those of you who don't know, Kishore Kapoor is CT Closing Group, right?
CT Real Estate Closing Attorney.
Yeah, he changed his name, but he's been a sponsor of the association and the Young Professionals Network for 7 years now, probably.
Yeah.
So he's been doing seminars and a continuing education for the association for a great many years. If you don't know Kishore, you definitely want to get to know him. He'll answer many questions for you.
So
Very good.
before I get started, February 3rd, for anyone that needs CE credits, I am teaching here the contracts course. It's a 3-hour course where we go through the contract and 6 or 7, I don't remember if it's 6 or 7 riders. So that's February 3rd, and I don't know exactly the schedule yet, but the board has asked me to teach that course on a regular basis. So it's either going to be every other month. I'm going to push hard and try to do it every month, but I don't know if I have the time commitment I can do that. So we'll see. All right, so the first part of the contract that I want to talk about is personal property versus fixtures. This seems to be the place where we have the most fights and closings. So anybody know what a fixture is? So the easiest trick to know a fixture, right? Well, actually, I'm gonna back up. Real estate is everything, and everyone should know this. Real estate is the land and the building. That simple, right? And I'm saying that because when I get to the definition of personal property, you see why it's important. So a fixture is anything so attached to the property that when you remove it, it causes damage. And last night I was doing some Googling and I found a really great example, right? So if it's bolted to the house, if it's nailed to the house, if it's screwed to the house, if it's glued to the house, or it's cemented to the house, it's the fixture. That makes it nice and easy. So you know every time, right? The fun part with fixtures is something can be personal property, right? And personal property is anything that's not a fixture or real estate. Something can be personal property, but the second you would screw it to the wall, it becomes a fixture. Best example is TV mounts. For whatever reason, TV mounts tend to be the biggest fights for walkthrough issues. Either people take them out and leave the holes, people leave them and take the hardware to attach it to the TV. Or, you know, they try to do some other stuff, right? I had one closing where they left one of the arms for the TV and not the other because the person was just being petty. Another example is wall-to-wall carpet, right? Wall-to-wall carpet is personal property until it's installed into the house. So you do have that oddity of this. So I recommend err on the side of, like everyone said before me, disclose more than less, right? Put in, you think the stove is attached to the property. Maybe it's not, maybe it is, write it in. When we bought our house, our kitchen island, I automatically assumed the kitchen island was part of the house. Well, you know what? It turns out after I moved in,
I found it's not, it sits just on the floor. Luckily, the seller wasn't
Yeah.
and take it with him because they could have. We actually, so I recommend including over disclosing, put it on an inclusion, exclusion, be detailed as possible. Many years when I started my practice, we had a property in Fairfield where there was Viking appliances in the house. And I say Fairfield because it's Fairfield, the uniquity of it, the unique part of it, and we'll cover this a little bit, is they do things by binder and not by contract. Well, the attorney didn't know about the Viking appliances because nobody told us. So we just said stove. Well, it turns out there was a stove the day we closed. It wasn't the $3,000 Viking stove. It was the Walmart or the Home Depot dent and scratch special. So the client now is pissed, and legally we have no leg to stand on because it says stove.
But can't you go into the MLS, your picture and?
Yeah, they made the argument that it broke. It wasn't working, so we replaced it. Right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's a Viking stove is kind of the extreme, but it can happen if you see high-end appliances like that, it makes sense to just write it in. Yes.
So if you have it in the contract and it says for MLS, shouldn't it be something that's at least similar to what they had?
I mean, it's what happens is the attorneys don't, honestly, at the end of the day, I don't want to fight for hours over something as minor as that, of going back and forth of what it is, right? Because now I've got to dig into the MLS to see, well, how is it listed? What are the pictures and so on? I've actually done this with HUD. Was it with you? We used to do a lot of HUD closings. I used to do a lot of HUD closings. HUD's answer is, we don't give a shit. There's a stove in the pictures. We say there's no stove. We don't have it listed out. It's not in the contract. I had a closing the night before the closing. Somebody came in and stole all the appliances. And HUD's answer is, we don't care. We're closing anyways. Yeah, my client told me he was gonna make me famous because he was gonna sue HUD. So I think that was without. Does anybody got questions? I'm gonna stop because it's easier for me to just answer questions this way. Does anyone have questions on this? Yes.
I have a contract right now for the client, the seller has a bathroom that's gutted and the materials are all in the basement, all the house and stuff. And they put that as in the offer, they wrote that under personal property. Including all the materials. That actually is an issue with mortgage financing because now we're financing.
No, you're not.
A pile of material, technically not installed yet.
If you read so this is the other point I'm gonna come to. If you read the contract, it says no part of the purchase price below is assigned to any personal property or fixtures. So it shouldn't be an issue. With lenders, I can't tell you all lenders treat it a little bit differently, but the contract is very clear that it's not, no value is assigned to that personal property. So it shouldn't, but what underwriters do, I mean, ultimately we gotta remember, right? Underwriters can, to some degree, make some decisions or judgment calls, and we all just have to comply because they're gonna say, okay, you don't get the mortgage otherwise. All right, I'm gonna go to Kurt's question, deposits. So let me just give you a little understanding what a deposit is. Technically, a deposit does not make a contract valid or invalid, right? Legally, there's no requirement for a deposit. So if you put on line A and B of the contract, 0, no deposit has to be given. Problem is that people put in a number and then don't give the deposit. Now you're in breach of contract. This tends to be very controversial because if you talk to 5 attorneys, you get 5 different answers. But realistically, it's not a requirement, right? So legally, what you need to have a contract to be valid, you need an offer, which is whatever you're buying the house for, an acceptance, the seller saying, yes, I agree it, and some sort of consideration. Everybody thinks the deposit is a consideration, and it's not the case. Consideration is, I'm buying your house for $300,000. The seller is saying, I accept that you're buying my house for $300,000. I'm going to sell you my house for $300,000. That's the contract. You're making promises to do something. Now, they come to closing and you don't get $300,000, they're not going to give you the keys. You've breached your contract. The contract's saying you're promising you're going to do something. So that's just a misconception out there. Now, Kurt had asked, is there a time limit to give a deposit? Right? And the answer is, it depends. which is every answer for, and what it depends, which every answer an attorney is gonna tell you. Where it depends on and what it depends on is the contract, right? So if you're using the New Haven Association contract, which is also CTR and GAR, it's all one contract that we use. It says very clearly that upon execution of this contract and no later than 3 calendar days, the deposit must be given. If you don't give the deposit by day 3, they're in breach of contract and the seller can cancel the contract. I have done this, right? I've gone to the extreme of, for section B, I've been a dick and I will admit to it. Section B says the deposit needs to be certified funds or a cashier's check. I got given a personal check and I said to the agent, nope, you're in breach. We're not accepting this. We're canceling your offer. We're keeping your deposit. We're moving to the next person because you couldn't do your job. Turned into a huge fight. My client ended up saying, bring us a certified check by today at 5 o'clock and we'll move forward. And that's what ended up happening. So we ended up with a certified check, pissed off attorney, pissed off agents, but I had to do what we needed.
You need it.
I've done this where I've had to do this because we had a backup offer that came in higher. And you as the buyer, the buyer's agent screwed around and didn't get us the deposit, didn't get the deposit to the listing agent or my office. We are unique in that sense that we do collect and hold deposits, right? We canceled the contract, turned around and gave it to the next buyer.
But there's no state statute that says you can't do this.
Nope, it's by the contract.
Okay, and all that does is allow you to cancel because now
Yeah.
you're in breach.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And just to piggyback off that and the MLS, the deposit not being there, unless they cancel the contract, you can't wait. Put the listing under contract until you get your deposit,
Why not?
if you already have a contract.
Because you do have a contract. The
So it's
deposit,
technically under deposit because you have 2 signatures?
no, it's not under deposit, it's under contract.
Well, where's the under contract on the MLS? And it says show or under deposit.
This is under contract.
There's an under contract there?
Yeah.
There's no under deposit, right?
It's one of the, 1, 2.
No, it's
So,
so it's continue to show or it's under contract.
so then if you don't have the deposit money, it's under show.
No, it's under contract.
We changed it to usually, they're both under contract, there's an under contract, continue to show,
Right.
and there's one that's under contract. Both of them are under contract, so if you're under contract, there's
Okay.
2 signatures on that line. Until you break those 2 signatures on that line and that contract's no longer valid, it needs to be marked. On the MLS is under contract.
And if it's continue to show, you need to be able to
You have to
confirm
show.
appointment, yeah. So don't put it on continue to show just because you're waiting contingencies, you put it on continue to show because you want to still allow showings.
And if you want to learn more when those 2 different situations apply, sign up for our 3-hour class, because I am going to talk about
If
when
C's are signing up.
when you're going to use that under show contract. Under contract show versus under contract. I do discuss that in our class.
Which I highly advise doing that, even though your CDs are not due for a while, always do it very early.
You mentioned the deposit has to be a bank check or certified check or a bank.
Deposit 2.
Oh, deposit number 2.
So the first deposit could be a personal check, it could be a bank check, or it could be a wire. The second deposit,
And that can be
What?
very-
This is, and you're going off the Hartford.
I am talking specifically, when I'm talking about the contract terms, I'm specifically talking about the NHMR, CTR, GAR contract. There are a bunch of other contracts out there. There's also an old New Haven contract that you realistically should not be using. The board is not using that contract anymore. There's also the SmartMLS, there's E-Car, there's a bunch of different other contracts, then all the brokerages.
Yeah.
A lot of brokerages have their own too. What I'm referring to is the CTR, GAR, New Haven Association of Realtor, New Haven Middlesex Association of Realtors contracts. All right, mortgage contingency. The biggest thing I see that comes up is cash deals that automatically become a mortgage somehow. Right? Where the person said, okay, I'm putting an offer in. Here's my proof of funds. I got $300,000 in the bank. They decide they're going to go apply for a loan. What do you guys think? Is that okay? What are you saying?
I haven't done that for clients, but I'm upfront with the listing agent to say we're prepared to close in cash if we don't get the mortgage. And in 100% of the cases, they're okay with that.
So legally, it doesn't matter. It's not a breach.
But what if they don't allow the appraiser?
Well, that's, I'm getting there. So then this contract I like because they actually put in there that you're gonna, it's no mortgage cash deal or it's mortgage contingency is waived. And in essence, they mean the same thing. It's just putting the seller on notice that they're gonna go apply for a mortgage. So what happens is a cash deal is just saying, listen, you're gonna close on December 31st or you're not. And I know I'm going backwards in time, but December 31st or not, there's no pushing that date out. Realistically, right? I mean, the attorneys have a way to push it maybe a week, but you can't say, oh yeah, I'm waiting another 2 weeks because I don't have a clear close. As to Stephanie's point, the appraisal. There's appraisal riders that will allow a cash deal to have an appraisal. But if you don't, you're screwed. You got to buy it in cash if the seller's not going to let the appraiser in, and they don't have to. There's no requirement to let the appraisal in.
What a lot of people do right now is they're going and they're saying cash, they close with the cash and they refinance within 30 days and it's treated just as if it's a purchase.
Yeah.
So,
I have a lot of people that actually went in and mom and dad put up the cash offer. And then they switched it, they did a mortgage during the process. This was, given, this was last year or 2 years ago now when rates were a lot lower. And it made perfect sense to do stuff like that. Still may make sense. Your financial position, I don't know, but we had a lot of people that do that. And sellers would say, you know what, we're not letting the appraiser in. And they say, okay, fine, we get a desk appraisal or we got some sort of a waiver around it. We made it work. But a lot of the times sellers are pissed off that we did that, but you know what? There's nothing. Yeah, but so this client that I'm thinking of in particular wasn't planning on getting a mortgage and then was at a party and happened to speak to a friend that was a mortgage broker. And was like, why are you blocking all your cash? It's 2.5% at that point, right? So it's free money. The one other thing I'm going to mention here is when you're requesting your contingency dates, be realistic, right? An average FHA mortgage takes 60 days to close, which means it's a 45-day mortgage contingency, the realistic side of it, right? A conventional loan on average is about 30 days. Don't ask for a week for a contingency. I say ask 20, 25 days, right?
your loan originator.
Right, or talk to the loan ranger. CFHA, right now, it's about 60 days for an approval. VA, and this was based off of Google, I don't do enough VAs, but they're saying on average, it takes 50 days to get through a VA loan. So be realistic with what you have, because you know what? It pisses sellers off when we have to ask for extension after extension after extension. Which I will talk about extensions in a few minutes. All right, so on to timeliness. There's only one date in the contract that is really flexible, and that's the closing date, right? Connecticut law says that closing has to occur within a reasonable time after the date. We get some leeway. Your mortgage contingency, your inspection contingency, and your deposits are always going to be hard dates because it's telling everybody that it has to be done by a specific date and time. Right. And that's really the trick. When it's specifically listing out a date and time, that's going to be treated by the courts as a time of the essence, because it's very clear to everybody that we're saying this is your drop dead date, right? Versus the closing date's always kind of open-ended. It also says after the closing date on the New Haven contract that it states that it's closing on this date or sooner, or whatever is mutually agreed by the parties. So it's kind of telling you that it's flexible. Kathy was talking about, a contract is under contract until it's the termination signed or it expires. Connecticut law says that if a contract is signed and you have 1 year from the date that the closing date to exist. So if today we have our closing date today, you have until next year to realistically, before that contract automatically terminates. So if a termination is not signed, it will automatically lapse after a year. It's a year and 1 day. Realistically, if you guys are having situations where you need a time of the essence and it has to be a hard date, you should not be drafting the contract. You should be picking up the phone and calling your client's attorney or telling your client to call their attorney and say, we want this to be time of the essence and make it a hard date. Because just saying time of the essence under Connecticut law is not enough to make it time of the essence. You actually have to take a little bit more steps. So don't get involved with that. Turn that over to the attorneys to draft. All right.
I have a question, Kishore.
Yep, just give
You
it.
were talking about contract expiration, you said technically it's like a year lapse time or whatever. Does that mean that's like some type of redemption period of time or something?
No, it's just, that's just when the contract law no longer becomes valid. It's terminated. Right? That does not mean you have 1 year to close on a property after the closing date. It just means that's the date that the contract automatically is invalid. Right? Because I know there's times where we can't always get sellers and buyers to agree to sign terminations because there's fights over stupid things, right? The deposit might not have been given, so I have a lot of agents that there's no deposit given, they don't even waste the time. Right? Their answer is we're not doing it because it doesn't matter. I don't think that's the right attitude, but after a year after that contract, it just disappears. It's like it never was signed. All right, disclosures. This is a place where there's always trouble. And the next section we'll talk about as is, so we'll kind of go with those. So do you guys realize that even if your clients don't sign the property disclosure and give the $500 credit, they still have to disclose material information? And I'm on the Realtor Facebook group. I know this happens often. How many times have you guys had an inspection and issues come up and the seller does not change the property disclosure? Legally, you guys and the agent, you guys and the seller can get in trouble for that. Because now you're part of this. Now you're violating, going back to Steve, your ethical duty. You are misrepresenting that property because you are aware of an issue. If your sellers are not going to disclose it, you guys should automatically terminate those clients and tell them tough. I'm not representing you. I know that's something we all don't want to do. We don't want to, like with Steve had talked about, we all are in this business to make money, but it's not worth the liability because what could happen is your buyer could sue you guys and can sue the seller. And there is case law that agents have been sued for non-disclosure issues. Now, there is something that's a flip to this. Most buyers don't understand this, and maybe because that might come from the agents not understanding. Connecticut's a buyer beware state, which means that if there is an issue that's not disclosed and the buyer was able to determine that issue at a home inspection, right? They have no claim. Right. So I had a client that bought a house, the oil tank was rusted. It came up on the inspection, but they were buying as is, which we'll talk about in a minute, and they didn't raise the issue and they didn't back out. We closed, she moves in, she now sees that the oil tank has rust on it and calls me and says, I want to sue the seller. You saw it, right? Well, you didn't disclose that there was an issue with the oil tank, but you saw it. Realistically, that's what it comes down to. Now, if it's something hidden, right? Or it's environmental that you're aware of toxicity. And like, right, there's a place in Stratford where the soil is all contaminated. If you are asked explicitly by the buyer's agent, and you need to go back to your client, that has to be disclosed if the seller knows. Right? So that's considered material information, but the buyer actually has to ask. You just have a duty to say, and the contract takes care of it, just notify that there's a possibility of that stuff.
Sure.
Yes.
I actually walked away from the listing. It was an older home with a brand new file tank. And I asked the seller, what was the reason you replaced it? The other tank let go. So he wanted it to the basement. And he didn't want to dispose of it. I'm out.
Yeah.
About to do this.
Yeah.
Have to dispose of it.
This is why you should come to the sales course, because a lot of people, I feel, they won't practice their fiduciary duties because out of scarcity, they don't have enough other clients, so they end up, cutting corners like you're talking about. So I feel like that may be.
Alan, I may go over like 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah. Let me just close it out and then, so what we're gonna do is Kishore is gonna continue to present, but for everybody that needs to go, I want to respect your time. I just wanted to say thank you to all the presenters. You all gave an abundant amount of information. Really what it comes down to, for those of us that have sold a lot of properties, have been doing this for a while, every single sale is extremely unique because there are controllable variables and uncontrollable variables. By controllable variables, I mean the things that we can kind of look up, what Stephanie was talking about, which is like the properties, and you can support it with facts. The uncontrollable variables are like the human element, the human component. Like that is a very widely uncontrollable controllable variable. And there are so many human elements in every single real estate sale. There's appraisers, inspectors, attorneys, buyers, sellers, their cousins, both realtors. And so that's why this gets super complex. The best way that we can represent our clients and be the best fiduciary as possible is to continue on this continuing education and just make sure that we're absorbing tons of information, because the market changes all the time, and also the legislation changes all the time, compliance changes all the time for mortgages and all of that. So please continue to come to this. If after, when Kishore is done speaking and you're still here, please take a chance to network with each other. As we said earlier, this is a relationship-driven business. We're not just here for the information, we're here to meet each other. If you haven't taken the time, I know Kelly's not here, please reach out to her. Please thank Jackie for sponsoring the lunch as well. You know, she's with the insurance companies. They have over 70 different carriers, and you know, they can do a really good job, and same with prime lending and the other lenders in the house as well. I'm going to let Kishore keep going.
I've got, for everyone that's got to leave, I got two quick things to mention before you run off. And the biggest one is the extensions. This is the biggest mistake I see agents make, where they kick it or they allow the attorney to file the extensions. The second I file an extension, it's not valid.
What do you mean by that?
Because I do not have the power, and I'm not a party to the contract. And the contract is very clear that this is the entire agreement. Any change needs to be done in writing signed by all parties. So everybody that allows their attorneys to file extensions.
You're talking about just like emails.
Emails or whatever, like where rather than having the seller sign the extensions, having the attorneys take care of it, it's not valid.
Yeah, but you're talking about, well, you can type an addendum as long as it's mutually executed.
Right, I could do it.
Then it is valid.
As long as it's signed, but a lot of the times agents kick it over to my office and say, hey, file this for me. And they don't realize that the way attorneys handle it is not really right. I mean, I take it to the step forward and I kick it back to you guys and say, listen, we need to have it signed. But there's a lot of attorneys that just send a fax and say, yep, this is good.
Yeah.
Not valid.
There's no signatures.
There's no signatures. And they say, like, we used to use the form that says if it's not signed within 24 hours, we're assuming it's consented to. But we have legally, if it gets to court, those cases aren't going to be, those clients aren't protected. Right. And we all go down together at that point.
Yeah.
Right. Does it come down? The client doesn't care that you didn't do it or I didn't do it. It's not done. That's all they care about. And then the last thing I'm going to leave you with, because if you have to take off and you didn't get all the information, if you want me to do a one-on-one, I'll sit down and go through the rest of this with you.
But you also have your continuing education happening.
Yes.
When is that again?
February 3rd. It's going to be, I believe it's 9 to 12.
And that's all about contracts.
That's all about contracts. I try to make a dry subject fun.
There's always a particular.
Yeah.
Realtors love to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's on February 3rd. And once again, next ramp program is February 15th. That's a Wednesday. So I hope to see some of you there. Please take the time to network with each other. Thank you for coming and talk to any of the presenters or any of the sponsors. Thank you.
Thank you.
What's that? I can finish if you want to chat, whatever you want to do. I don't know what. I have more. I could talk about this topic. There's always stuff to cover.
Thank you, everyone that attended in Zoom.
Yeah.
I did see some of the messages from Elson and Jessica.
I'll pull them up, bro.
Did people want me to? All right. Just give people 2 minutes and I'll start back up. It'll take 5 more minutes. Well, so it's not necessarily an addendum. It doesn't have to be an addendum. It's an agreement that's signed by all parties.
Stacey, take a look at your emails and you'll get an invite or you'll get an email with the next classes that are mentioned. And Rachel will sign you up for the ramp program. Jessica, we see that you're interested as well. So Rachel will take note of that in the chat.
I replied to her personally.
Okay. All right. Outstanding. Sorry. Just trying to give them.
Yeah, I'm totally taking care of it.
I know you're always, you're always on it, Rachel.
All right. So it looks like the rest of you guys want to stick around for a few minutes. So when there's conflicts between a rider and the addendum, the contract, in terms of dates, I would rely on the addendums because you're modifying the contract. Yes. So as is, right? I know in the last year, informational purposes inspections have become a popular thing. Realistically, it's the same thing as waiving your inspection. The seller's just allowing you to go in and look at the house again. You can't get out of the contract for that grounds. You're waiving, in essence, you're waiving the inspection because you're saying it's for your information only. You can't back out.
Even if it was like.
Because you're saying that the purpose of this inspection is just for your information. Right? You're waiving it that in sense. You're waiving it. You're saying it's only for your information. Right? Most of those are saying as is first too, right? So if you keep it just as is, you're fine. As is different. No, as is different. I'm talking, you should put as is, yeah. And as is doesn't mean the seller is going to leave all their shit behind. And I see that all the time and it pisses me off because it's somebody not explaining right. Correct. I mean, for as is, yes, but not for informational purposes only.
If not what?
So a lot of time, what we've seen a lot in the last year is people saying, I'm doing an inspection for informational purposes only. That's waiving the inspection.
But also, agents will put that in their.
Yeah, because they don't know.
description, their list,
They don't know.
And ask you to put that on the contract.
Right. Well, you're not helping your clients by doing that. It's because somebody's uneducated about what they're talking about.
Yeah, it's in a lot. But
Yeah.
as is.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, but you're not writing informational purposes then. One second. I also recommend looking at a calendar when using picky dates because it just pisses off sellers and buyers when we have a holiday and the firms are telling them we're closed because it's a holiday. And then there's no issue with asking for a specific contract to be presented. So you could say you have to present it on X contracts. So, Al, you had a question.
Oh, it's back to the.
We lost you, Al. Nope.
Can you hear me now?
It's so choppy. Al, I think you have my email. If you want an email, we could chat offline too.
Okay.
If not, here, I'm gonna put in the chat for anyone that has questions. All right. I've covered everything. Everyone have questions? I'm happy to stick around for a little bit more and kind of chit chat. So, all right. Thank you, everyone on Zoom. Should I end? Take care, everybody.